I wanted to make this video to educate and make people more aware of what it's like to be Black in America. There comes a point in time where my silence is betrayal to the Black community. As small children, we've been taught to live in fear and constantly look over our shoulders. I know the message is getting lost due to all the rioting and obscurity, but I want everyone to stay focused on the task at hand. The Black Lives Matter movement isn't designed to tear down other nationalities or gender identities, but simply standing up for equality for Blacks because our lives are at risk. The system is broken. It was never designed for equality. Discrimination and oppression has been going on for over 400 years, and it's time to leave that mentality of white supremacy behind. When I sit back and evaluate and take a deeper dive, it's upsetting because the Black Lives Matter movement has been fighting for justice and equality prior to the fatal killing of George Floyd. Unfortunately, in order to see any change, whites had to stand with us in order for our voices to be heard. Down below in the description box, I'll be leaving a list of educational films as well as the link to Yale and UCLA's free open course for African American history. I highly encourage you guys to check it out and educate yourselves. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video.
I mean, I really do feel like I have to educate my children. I mean, face it, our Black children are getting killed. Black men, Black women, it doesn't matter what gender, they're being killed. And so I tell my children, if you get stopped by the police, just cooperate with them. Stop the car when you see the lights come up behind you. Don't try to outrun them. Stop the car, remove the keys from the ignition, set them on the dashboard. Place your hands on the steering wheels and just wait for the officer to approach you. Don't open up the door. Just kind of stand there calmly, just waiting for them to approach you. And listen to what he says. It can save their life.
Yes, I have two boys. When they were young, I explained to both of them that being a Black man, you're already 2 or 3 steps behind at all times. When you run into law enforcement, fake it till you make it. Yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Let them know every move that you're gonna make. If you need to get your ID, your registration, whatever it is that they ask for, let them know before you make a sudden move. Because I myself have been in a situation to where a buddy of mine was driving and he went to reach because they asked for his insurance. And next thing you know, the guy had a gun in the car and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" He said, "I'm getting my, insurance." But I always taught my kids to just make sure that they conform with what the police asked them to do and be as nice as they possibly could. And after the police left, they could feel how they wanted to feel, but it's the difference between life and death.
I do feel like it's important to share with my children about their dealings with the police. I think it's important that they know their rights and that once they are stopped, that they do put their hands on the steering wheel, that they let the police know that they are getting their license, their proof of insurance, their car registration. I think it's also important to know that they have rights and the questions that the police ask them, where they're going, where they've been, that it's not necessary that they answer those questions.
As an African American parent, I think that we must have a responsibility to educate our children dealing with the police. I've been in law enforcement for 20 years, and I think to have a conversation, you have to get the children and young people to understand their rights. Most importantly, especially Black males. Black males must understand, stop running from the police, because the camera is the best way to capture the stop, but the courtroom is the best way to fight. We cannot help our young people by burying them. We are deserving of all of the legal protection that the Constitution provides, as well as the state laws.
Personally, racism has affected everyone's life. It really has. It's affected my life. I just feel like there's a marginalized group of employees, that get special treatment, in the corporate America. We get overlooked a lot of times just by the color of our skin. Our skin is keeping us enslaved. It doesn't matter. Sometimes you can be the best worker, the hardest worker, and you will often get overlooked. They may all say, what's her brand? She's a hard worker, she strives, she cares about what she does, but yet that sometimes doesn't get you anywhere. It gets you a good pat on the back, but when you look at the dollars, they don't increase. When you measure the amount of money that a man versus woman gets, the man outpaces it. When you measure a white woman versus a black woman, the white woman outpaces it. So yes, I believe, that those type of things have affected us. I mean, it affects us all, and it's still going on. This has been a situation, from the past, and it's still around. People can pretend like they don't know. They can say that they weren't aware, but the truth is, we're all aware. There's an abuse of power in America. When management is put in place, they should actually, just kind of like profile the managers, because I mean, the abuse of power is there, and it's there whether it's in corporate America. It's there if you talk about the police. It's there. I mean, I have several situations. I mean, I remember a time, from being in the elevator with certain colors of skin and people scooting over because you stepped into the elevator. Not as a courtesy just to let you in, but just like all against the wall, like I'm gonna bite them. A time that jumps out a lot was I had a customer come into my office, and they were there to do business with us. So I went over and introduced myself to them. And this person, saw which desk I walked from, and they just took off walking to my desk. As I had my hand out to shake their hand and introduce myself, they just took off walking. So I get to my desk, and they're already seated. And so then I stand up, behind my desk and extend my hand out again to say, introduce myself, and they would not accept my hand. And I'm thinking, okay, no, this is not my imagination. They really are trying to ignore me. So then it prompted me to go to the opposite side of my desk. And I refused to sit down until they shook my hand. So then I had to go beside their side of the desk and extend my hand once again for the third time. And then they finally accepted my hand. But that right there happens all the time, that those type of little sneaky sly things that people try to do.
Yes, I'm a 50-year-old black man. Racism has always affected my life. It started at a very early age of about 7. We moved from East Austin to Northeast Austin. In the 70s, Northeast Austin was predominantly white. So in our neighborhood, there were maybe 7 or 8 black families in the whole neighborhood. I was affected in the neighborhood by the white people. I was affected at school by the white teachers and staff. I was affected by the neighboring schools. I didn't even know I was black until I was 7 years old. The thing that I wish I would have done differently growing up in the 70s was to let my mom know that every time we went to the store to buy a little snacks or a little soda or what have you, white young men would throw cans at us and call us niggas and run us up and down the road. And we were terrified. I should have done differently was to go home and tell my mom that this was happening instead of suppressing it and just kind of keeping it in and allowing it to be a way of life.
I do feel like racism has affected my life. And one experience I can think of was in college in my criminal justice field that my instructor was very upset because of an incident that had taken place in East Austin. And blacks had a real problem with the treatment that the police had given them. And during that event, he is in the enforcement area, and he felt like there was no racial injustice in the criminal justice system, and he didn't understand why blacks were so upset. And after about the third time of him saying that, I had to say, Professor, I beg to differ, and I gave my take on it. And no one else had any other comments in the class about that until our break, and then during the break, several people came up to me and told me how they agreed, but they wouldn't say anything. So to me, that's part of the problem as well, that we feel that way, but we don't say it.
White racism, white supremacy has absolutely affected my life. I think you cannot be African American male, man or woman or female for that matter, and not identify systemic and systematic race discrimination. White supremacy is a real problem. It has been deeply embedded in this country, no matter how they try to deny it. Something that happened within my own lifetime, October of 2019, I was minding my own business at a school parking lot in a public place, and AISD Police Department pulled me over and stopped me and didn't have any authority. They didn't realize that I understand the profession. They didn't understand or realize that I understand the laws. And so now I'm having to articulate my rights with the police department, including the police chief and their legal team.
The biggest thing is equality and justice for all. I mean, we we all need that. We need to be equal. Another thing, remove the setting, this factory reset of white. We don't have to be factory set as white. We should all be able to be accepted for the color that we actually are. I mean, that's just one of the things we need to do. Lastly, just, stop believing that racism doesn't exist. America, wake up. Wake up. It does exist. It's here, and it needs to be removed. I mean, give us all just a fair shake. Can we get our 40 acres and our mule?
What I would like to see change is, we say equal rights, but there's never been equal rights. People say it all the time. What I'd like for white people and other races to do is to not try and continue fooling us and making us think that we are equal, because we're not equal. They know we're not equal. And the only difference between slavery way back then and slavery now is they found a different way to cover it up. And we as black men and black women need to teach our children that they are not equal. Yes, they should be equal, but they're not equal. And we need to teach them what equality is and teach them what is expected from equality. But we need to teach them, though we should be equal, we're not being treated equal. And we have a long, long way to go to be treated equal.
For our community as a whole, I feel like there needs to be a big change. And I think, first of all, it has to be in our minds, because even if things are changed as far as the law, and I do want changes made in the law, but once if you are adhering to the law while you're at work, you do go home. You're still that same person whether you're at work or you're at home. And so I feel like a little child, when they are born, they don't come into this world saying, I don't like black people. No, they learn that behavior. So it's something that is in you. And I feel like your mind has to be changed, but then also your heart. And to me, that goes to having a relationship with the Lord, because if you have a relationship with the Lord, we all have something in our lives we've got to get right. But at the same time, if we're trying to please Him, we're not going to want racism in our lives. We're not going to want to be a way that's not pleasing to Him, because He's not for oppressing. And I feel like so many people are coming together. I have a friend that actually asked me and a Mexican sister if we felt like she was a racist, and I said yes. And I love her dearly because I have shortcomings, she has shortcomings, and together, if we work together, we can help to make a difference in this world. I think we have to be bold enough to have those courageous conversations, to say, this is how I feel, this is where you are, let's work on it and let's come together. I think it's not just at the top with the White House and the things that we have problems with our president or people in elected officials, but it's also in our homes and in our circles. So there are people that you can touch that I can't, and there are people that I can touch that you can't. So I think it's a coming together as one. And I believe in protesting. I've protested, my family has protested, but I think writing letters, and I've been writing letters the last couple of years. And then I also think with getting out and voting. And so recently I volunteered to help people to register, because I feel like your vote, you can talk a lot, but your vote is what walks and what makes a difference. And so I hope to be able to register many people to vote so that they can get out there and make their voice known.
First thing is that as African American people in our community, we have to stop comparing ourselves and asking for equal rights and equality. Out of all groups and nations in our country, we are the only one asking America to give us its promises. We have fought for equality for more than 65 years. Dr. King, Malcolm fought for equality. So now, my concern is that as far as equality under the law, I expect and I would ask, enforce the laws the same. Equality means sameness of condition. The conditions that we are in is not equal, and we need to quit demanding and asking for it, and we now have to prepare ourselves to where we don't have to ask or demand. If you're not going to enforce your laws equally, then we must hold America accountable. We must ask them to enforce the laws under the 14th Amendment, the 5th Amendment, and if it's law enforcement officials that we're asking them to hold accountable, then we need to use 42 U.S.C. 1983, color of law violations. We have no choice but to lead in a new direction and quit asking our oppressors to do for us what we can do for ourselves.
will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Black Lives Matter.
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 Black Lives Matter. And no justice, no peace.
As the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation,